Welcome to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast. My name is David Sims of HIPAA for MSPs, and joining me is Don McGrillen of Carden. Good morning, Don.
Good morning, David. Kind of. You had that whole mellow thing going on. You're usually all, welcome to it. And all of a sudden you just went, welcome to
the podcast. Episode 322.
Maybe we should start doing meditation, HIPAA meditations.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't understand how that would work, but typically when we're like, okay, the first step in HIPAA is to do a security risk analysis. People are already stressed out.
I was like, it's like, take a minute, take a deep breath. This is what you need to do to handle it. And then all of a sudden it'll be, you were dreaming because one of us is going to scream, oh my God, that's malware.
Yeah. Well, being able to recognize when there's an incident like that has some value to it. Mm-hmm. I won't throw anybody under the bus, not that they listen, but some people don't realize when there's a security incident that happened. For example, somebody that I know, I get an email from yesterday, and there's another person that got the same email from them. And this other person I was talking to, I said, their inbox has been hacked. And their response was, no, it's not. It didn't come from them. The email came from somebody else. I'm like, I get that, but how do you think they got our email address? We're on his contact list, and they emailed us as him with his information, his address, his phone number, and all that. It's pretty obvious somebody has infiltrated his email address, his email account, and got, took all his contacts. And she was like, oh. But the first response was, oh, just delete it. It's just spam. No, it's not just spam. It's an indicator of compromise.
That's right. An IOC.
Mm-hmm.
You need to do something. So what'd you do about it?
I deleted it.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah. It's somebody I hadn't talked to this person in a decade. So
that also explains why you have so much digital dust out there that you can't assume anything.
Yeah, everywhere that your email lands, chances are somebody can scrape that information, because we all know, no matter how many times this is blown up in people's face, they use their inbox as a storage of files and data. Call out my wife on that one, because the local ISP, the internet provider, they give us email addresses for being a customer. She was storing pictures, videos, court documents, all kind of stuff. And she missed the notification that said, we're going to purge accounts that have not used our email in the past year. And she don't use the email anymore. What she would do is, when she would get an email that she needed to save, she would forward it to that address and used it for storage. Well, she logs in one day and there's nothing there. So she lost kid pictures. She lost pictures of dead family members. She lost court documentation. And that it's nowhere else. She had it stored nowhere else. Yes. So the backup 3-2-1 rule is something she did not know about. Apparently.
Yeah, it's a great idea, but you need to have it in more than one place.
Yeah.
That could be like your tertiary place.
Yeah. So, using your inbox. I mean, look, we all do it to some degree, but using your inbox of your email as your storage location, not a good idea.
No, please don't do that.
Yeah. So, and if you're using Google Workplace or whatever it's called this week, and Microsoft Drive, those places are for storage. but do realize these big companies don't back that data up for you. They back it up for them in case they have a massive, outage or something that happens. But if you accidentally delete it or it gets deleted in some other fashion, they're not going to recover that for you.
Nope.
You need to have that backed up. Trust me, I've tried. They are not going to recover that for you.
We've always had our people ask, why do you have a backup of your Google Workspace or Google Suite or, Google for Work, whatever it was at any time, we've had it backed up, because, and I've had to use it before when it happens.
Yeah. We've had to use it when there was an employee, and right before they got terminated, they went in and deleted all their emails, permanently deleted all their emails. And because they knew it was coming. So fortunately, we had all that, being backed up. Had it not been backed up, they never would have recovered it. There would have been no way to get it.
Yep.
So
it's always good that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there's your tip for the day. Has nothing to do with what it kind of, I guess, could go in with what we plan on talking about. What do you think?
We were going to talk about some readiness and response planning because, as we always love, somebody's giving us a guide to go by.
Yeah. Well, we try to educate people free. We always say, don't like it, double your money back. But
which we have had people. Just so you know, we do appreciate all the things people wish we would add to our list of things to do. Just know you're not paying anything for this, so we'll get around to it maybe.
It really is mostly just, we have to give Krista appreciation and Boyan appreciation. They do their parts and we appreciate that. But everything that goes into what we're talking about and how we handle it, it's just us. So someday we'll have a big production company. But until then, yeah. So when we respect things that we can get freely available, because, we know our listeners like that freely available training, so they probably like the freely available stuff. And these guides that are there for you to use, and they have great information in them. It's again, we volunteer to help build this kind of stuff because we believe in it. This is adjacent to the stuff that we build, and it's very interesting. And they put out good stuff.
I know.
So we're going to educate people about ASPR TRACIE.
Oh, who is she?
She's your new best friend.
I know. That is for certain.
All right. So you want to explain who ASPR TRACIE is? We're going to go into this. We need to thank anybody else our donors.
Yeah, donors. Yep. Thanks for donating. Obviously, if you like today's episode, we do want you to share it out. Getting a lot of traction there. Thanks for that. Leave us a review. We hadn't got any reviews in a while because we hadn't asked for them in a while. So do that. Please go leave us a review wherever you're listening. And we're on YouTube. So people know that somewhat, but we haven't mentioned that in a while either. So if you want to go see our crazy faces that we make as we're talking, because I don't edit any of the good stuff out on the YouTube part. Some of it gets edited out on the audio, not in the video.
It's just totally random stuff. So
So ASPR TRACIE. So ASPR ASPR stands for the Assistant Secretary for Preparedness and Response. Whew. Now, as if
Assistant Secretary of what, David?
HHS.
Very good. I love that panic moment. Wait.
You didn't have that down as something you're going to throw at me.
I got to keep you on your toes.
So thank goodness it says asprtracie.hhs.gov. And Tracie, TRACIE, because acronyms. This has got to be the longest one I know of, though. But this one is, Technical Resources Assistance Center and Information Exchange. So hats off to whoever gets paid all that money to create acronyms for programs.
We need to know who the acronym people are.
Yeah. So now you know who ASPR TRACIE is, or rather what ASPR TRACIE is.
It's like a whole paragraph. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Office of the Assistant Secretary for Preparedness and Response, has sponsored the ASPR Technical Resources Assistance Center and Information Exchange since 2015. So this has been out here a while.
Yeah.
And if you hadn't heard about it, don't, feel bad. A lot of people haven't, and we haven't really talked about it, but technically when we, go to get our stuff for 405D and HIPAA, it's under the ASPR TRACIE site right now. So that, and they put out a new guide that came out this year in February, and how it got past me for us not to talk about it before. There's plenty of other stuff that's, there's a ransomware guide that's been put out. There's, there's so many things that we haven't had time to talk about.
Yeah. But the thing that gets me is that now more than ever, there are so many fantastic resources out there. It's almost like you can't possibly say, well, I don't know how to do this, or I don't know the questions to ask, or what I should have. I mean, there are organizations spitting out stuff all the time. And this one, we're looking at a checklist now.
There's multiples
checklists. We're talking hospital downtime operations, cyber incident response, hospital downtime preparedness, cyber incident system restoration. I mean,
lessons learned from MedStar Health System outage. There's all kinds of, and it links you to all of these other resources that'll help.
Yeah. I mean, just looking at the quick links in the chapters, it's even just reading that is like, oh, wow. They talk about cybersecurity exercises. How about this? Downtime principles.
Yeah. You got to go to the downtime principles office.
Yeah. But I like how they have it broken up. So there's, the preparedness and mitigation of things. Then there's sections of response, and then there's sections of recovery. And so, what this starts sounding a little bit like some of the NIST stuff, right?
Yeah. It does follow and recommend that you utilize NIST. It references HIPAA 405D. It references several NIST pieces, but this is a very comprehensive. When we say, what's your disaster recovery plan? We know what most people are thinking about.
Yeah.
Back up.
I got to back up. It's in my inbox.
She doesn't watch this, does she? Okay, yeah.
I think I'm safe for now until somebody finds her on Facebook.
Oh, wait, no.
You should listen to episode 322.
Your informant is going to tell her.
Oh, I forgot about that. You're right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
He's going to tell her.
You are right. I'm done.
Yep. Jig is up. All right. So, that's just funny because I know it's going to happen that Boyan's going to send that email. You should listen.
I'll cancel my credit card he's got on file.
Okay, so our readiness and response is all of the things that we've talked about for many, many times. It is important to have a plan. If you don't have a plan, you are, failure to plan is planning to fail kind of thing. But whoever said it or how they said it, the big picture issue here is we cannot stress enough the importance of this.
Mm-hmm.
It's the number one thing that will save you parts of your body, financially. It'll protect your investments. It will save you resources. I mean, there's so many things. If you have a plan and you know what you're going to do, it is nowhere near as the potential for screw ups as there is without a plan.
That's
and
true.
This takes you through so many things where I'm like, oh, well, you just said, like, there's some things where you're like, oh, that downtime principles. There's actual downtime forms,
Mm-hmm.
personnel adjustment. This was a fantastic guide.
Yeah. And
So,
you know, don't forget, if you don't have a plan for responding to things, it's not that you won't respond. You'll just be following somebody else's plan. And it may not be
a plan you
may
want to
not be
go
what you
down.
want to do, but you'll be following somebody's plan.
Yeah.
So better have your own.
Yeah, because that train is leaving the station.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going down some track. You got to figure out it. Wow. Okay. So it begins with IT incident planning, cybersecurity readiness, and I love the points that it talks about right off the bat. That it is you have to include understanding the threats and tactics used to target your vulnerabilities so that you can have a plan. You know, if
We
you
don't know
can't
what we're
understand,
protecting against. We're just protecting.
that's right. You know, so when we say you need to know where your PHI is in order to protect it, that's what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have to do an analysis of all the things that could go wrong. If you don't know what those are, then you can't protect the things that you know where they are.
Or as we used to say in the South, don't bring a knife to a gunfight.
There you go. Yeah, you still say that, David. You probably said it last week. So
got to know the threat, and you have to bring the proper thing to handle the threat.
Exactly. So the point it makes to keep abreast of imminent threats, cybersecurity teams and relevant medical staff should monitor official announcements for timely information on threats relevant to healthcare sector information systems.
So right off the bat, we're already saying this is not just an IT thing.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. So it is ensuring readiness. The healthcare facility information technology teams should incorporate basic IT preparedness principles into the planning protocol. Wow. But these are the principles that the whole thing is built on. And I thought the minute I read this, I'm like, oh, we got to use this more and incorporate it into a lot of the things we do with our clients right away. And my team's like, crap, she hasn't even given it to us yet. Hopefully I will by the time you hear it. But the protocols, the principles rather, that they want you to include. So we'll alternate on this one because it's a good long list, but it's definitely going to explain all of the things that are in here and why it's so full, because it starts with understand historical, not hysterical, historical healthcare related attacks and the subsequent lessons learned.
That's what we do on this podcast.
Exactly. Because we always say, learn from other people. Don't learn from you, learn from other people. You know, don't learn it on the fly. So that is part one, is make sure you include that in your planning, is to understand what's happened to others. Do part two.
Have an incident response plan and practice and update it regularly.
Exactly.
Now I know somebody's going to say define regularly.
So often enough that you actually know what it says.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. I tell you what, you practice it and update it as much as you want it to work.
Yeah. But it actually goes into details about doing that. And it says, you know, the whole organization should do this. The department should do this. And it continues breaking it down. So it does take you into these details in this guide. Implement cybersecurity digital infrastructure checklist into operational protocols.
What?
I know. So it's saying if you do these as you go, if you do the work as you go, it's not as overwhelming a task to deal with it when you need to on the back end.
Mm-hmm. And they even give you the checklist.
Yeah, there you go. There's that. All right. Next, what is it?
Ensure enterprise and individual facilities, emergency managers, and IT teams plan. Here's a big word that never gets used in healthcare and IT, collaboratively.
Yes, it is not just an IT thing. Please, you know, the power goes down, or, you know, if you don't have power, what happens to your ability to use the computers?
Kind of goes out the window.
Yeah, right away. And you got to think of a lot of things. You know, I'll never forget the time that back in the day where you had the big computer room with a raised floor and you had all the equipment in there. And it had its own power, its own air conditioning, firewalls around it. I mean, I'm that old. Thank you very much. And I was in charge of all of that. And apparently there were repairs going on the roof of the building. And the only thing that they knocked out was the power to that one room. We had power everywhere else, but not in the computer room. It's like that movie, you know, Airplane, where somebody unplugs it. The lights.
Yeah.
That's what happened. Did I think about that when I heard them banging around on the roof? Not before then, but now I always do.
Because you learn from past lessons.
That's right. But it involved the facilities.
Right.
I made sure that they started talking to us and sharing with IT what was going on when our admin people would get notification of maintenance going on in the building, because we weren't working together.
Yep. It's very common that people don't communicate with IT enough. Now, I can turn it around and say the same things. Common IT doesn't talk to the other people enough either. I mean, it's a very big problem on both sides of the field, which, you know, is something that you and I are doing our part.
Well, I mean, we cover it extensively in the boot camp, even.
Yes, we do.
So that it takes both sides. And there is a reason that we keep bringing this up. If you are not working with everybody that has, you know, the dog in the fight, as you say, then you're not prepared properly. You're not going to be. You're going to have everybody working against each other. So you've got to carry on and keep each other in the loop. Yeah.
The problem I run into the most right now, we're talking about planning. We're in the planning phase right now. What I see often is that IT gets called in during the response phase.
Yeah, not the planning.
You were right. I'm like, well, you're asking me to respond to something. What's the plan here? Because you didn't include me in it.
Yeah. So if you outsource IT, you need to include them in your plan. You don't make a plan that is, in fact, it should have multiple vendors. You need to understand how they can help.
Yeah.
Or be available to you.
That's even
And
if you're going to do anything within your infrastructure, you're going to
yeah.
bring in a new piece of equipment, then you should get IT involved in that. Don't have IT come in a year later and how long has this copier been here? Oh, we bought that last year.
Yeah. That's not what you do.
No.
No. There's all these pieces that talk to each other. And if they're talking to each other, great. But I need to know they're having those conversations.
Mm-hmm.
But I also need to have all the people in charge of all those pieces talking to each other as well.
Yep.
And it's a huge piece that is often overlooked. So bring in the right people, not just, hey, well, we'll call so-and-so. And IT providers, you don't get to say, well, we don't have to worry about an incident response plan because, we'll get to it when we get to it. Our clients will be fine. What are you going to do when all your clients are calling you at the same time? You better have a plan, because as your client, I'm going to be bearing down on you going, when you going to get to me?
Mm-hmm.
So, and David's like, let's don't talk about that. Shh. It makes me sick. It always makes me nervous. The thought of that. All right. Next, implement cyber hygiene programs and employee education drills to prevent successful attacks. Hi. I'm so excited about being able to use that now. Never like, we'll get into that later. But this gets back to, again, it's the people. And our episode on scripts, so not only do you want them prepared to prevent the attacks, but you also want them prepared when you respond to an attack, to everybody know what to do.
And I think there's a reason they said cyber hygiene programs and not cyber hygiene training
policies and procedures.
Yeah, because training people just say, oh, once a year. Program, no, not
that's
so much.
ongoing.
Yeah, not so much.
And education drills. So phishing, the phishing test that people do. Well, we only have 20% that are, no, you need lower, because we do know that yes, you may have a very low number that actually click, but of those that click, a very high number of those will give up the goods. So, we had to cheer everybody on for a group that I was meeting with this morning, and multiple people were bringing in another vendor, and they're like, here's our box account. And multiple people went, nope, not doing it. I need to confirm this. So we were like, woo, that's exactly what you want.
Yeah. You want people to question everything.
Yeah. So it is not wrong to ask the question, is this really you? And I reach you through another communication method. Is this really you? Yes, it is you. And as Carla would do, she said, well, what version of box do you use, before I said anything to it? And she's not talking to somebody that you would expect to not have it, but she's not assuming anything. The paranoia is a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, we got a email this week, and it was one of these, the executive director is no longer with us, and we need you to do blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, whoa, hold up. No, we're going to have a meeting. Like, I want to see your face on Zoom at the very least.
Yeah.
It turns out, because I did my homework, it turns out the executive director was, let's just say they resigned and took early retirement. We'll go with that.
That does happen.
Which I have to say, it's kind of the reason why we actually talked about in the previous podcast. This was a person that decided to call us when they needed us, and that was it. And they had business email compromise. And I don't know if you remember the story, but I said, yes, somebody's been in your email, and yes, you have PHI in your email, and here's what you need to do. And they were like, thank you very much. Talk to you later. I think that came to a head finally.
Oh,
So,
really? Yeah, well, I'll have to
yes.
get more stories on that.
But anyway, the point being, when something in the environment changes, especially if you're the IT person, all of a sudden you got somebody new that you're dealing with, don't just take it for granted that you're dealing with somebody legitimate. I mean, it could be at the same business and it still could be somebody who's doing something malicious.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm helping out so and so today. You can go ahead and up my authority.
Yeah. Well, this is why we don't take tickets from all employees.
Yep.
We want to narrow that down to as few people that we have to deal with as possible, and they have to go through a process. So otherwise, you got somebody who's got a couple hundred employees. That's a nightmare to try to deal with. Should they be emailing us? Should we be working on this? Whatever. Just have it all go through a central hub within the organization.
Well, yeah, I mean, I did that back in the ancient days.
Bring me your stone tablets and I will.
But we had it was a software company and they wanted everybody in our client offices to be able to call us directly, and I'm like, no, that's not what we do. So definitely it's all about managing the flow of information properly. And when I'm reviewing things and I see that here's the employee guide and it has one page that talks about privacy and security, that surely is not building the environment. It's like it should be embedded everywhere. And that's part of the cyber hygiene program. Anyway, moving right along.
Sure. Next one is to identify clinical and non-clinical operational vulnerabilities within the facilities.
Yes. So we don't just do computers.
Yeah. Not technical vulnerabilities, operational vulnerabilities.
Yes. So we're looking at, you have to evaluate the clinical parts and the non-clinical. So, financials, the number of times that we'll say, who has the ability to make this financial decision? If you don't have that person involved, then if something happens in your environment, then, non-clinical, clinical, it doesn't matter. There are vulnerabilities that are going to nail you one way or another.
Yeah. And keep in mind, we're still under the heading of IT, incident response planning.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love how they drive home that all the IT stuff is not for the technical people.
Mm-hmm. So, and get into the clinical discussion, medical devices, patient care. What will interrupt patient care? Because they make a point that this guide, and I probably should have read that at some point, but did not, that it is there to help facilities and the systems they may be a part of understand the roles and responsibilities of stakeholders before, during, and after a cyber incident. And they also point out that while the focus of this document is on disruptions associated with large-scale cyber attacks, many strategies and principles outlined are relevant to a range of cybersecurity incidents in healthcare facilities. But the whole point is to effectively care for patients and keep the business up and running. Well, if I haven't worried about actually treating the patients and all I worry about, we'll go to paper. That's my other favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the last piece of the principles. Now, these are the principles that should be included in your planning. Identify and understand how to engage with critical external partners, such as healthcare coalition stakeholders. So this is some stuff that we're going to get into more and more over the next bit in different episodes of ways that we can utilize those things that are there for you. So that critical availability of tools and help really matters. So there you have it. This is a massive guide. There's no way we could go through the whole thing.
No, we covered the bullet points of one page.
That's right. But there are some highlights that I think are very important, and that is when it's talking about, how many times do we hear, well, that's for big, not us. That's not us. That's we're too small for that. No, I currently have a practice with like 10 locations that says they're too small for some of the policies we want them to use. And I'm like, I'm just blinking like,
what?
Really? You're too small. Okay. So, yes, a lot of these discussions are about, the big enterprise wide, but they make a point of saying that, that you have that big picture, but the medium and large facilities, they got protocols in place, but they also point out and actually link you to the HIPAA guide for both the medium and large organizations and the small organizations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this whole thing is like bullet point after bullet point after bullet point. Because honestly, if they did the whole entire guide and wrote everything out, I mean, we're talking hundreds of pages. This is only a 30-page document. But this is like the Bible of planning and responding as far as what considerations, because that's the biggest piece that people struggle with, is like, I don't know what I don't know. And these are things you're going, consider this, think about this. Did you include this? And so it outlines all these things around all the topics. So it's a fantastic guide to help you create that response plan.
And it is, we're actually, for Cybersecurity Month, we're going to do some things about educating about services that are available. And we have a special guest episode coming up towards the end of October, and maybe the last one in October, middle of it. I don't know. In October, we're going to learn about what things are available, because there are federal cybersecurity services available for the healthcare industry, because they are a critical infrastructure industry that it falls under the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency of the Department of Homeland Security.
Take a breath.
Yeah, but we're going to get into the fact that, as this points out, there are some free services available, and I'm actively working with folks now just to understand what it is, and we're trying them out so that we can share that.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, they also take you through things, the mitigation are things that we talk about, patch management, vuln scans, assessments, segmentation. It even points you to, cybersecurity framework. And here's one that is becoming a bigger target on my radar, much to my team's. They're like, what are you doing now? But mapping healthcare IT business practices to data flow to inform monitoring requirements. Jeez. So, the more that you define, the more you can properly manage. You can't manage what you can't measure and define. So
it's true.
And there was a term in here that I hadn't seen before, and I didn't highlight this for you, David, but I just remembered it. Segregate life safety equipment. Life safety equipment. is not a term I normally have seen, but it sure does make sense when you say
Yeah.
how it should be important. And security communication platforms into isolated networks and establish redundancies in alerting, alarms, and notifications.
So that's a better way of what we usually say is critical systems.
Right.
So what does that mean? What does critical mean? There you go.
Life-saving equipment and security communication platforms.
There you go. That's critical.
Mm-hmm. It is. Whoop, it is. But then it goes into the review, test, and update IT recovery plans. And it even links you to some of this stuff that's ready.gov. We've talked about that before. Ready.gov has a lot of resources. It links you to some of those resources. It gives you ideas on understanding what you need to do for business impact analysis. The number of times that we start asking questions about, okay, what applications are the most important? What order do you need to bring them up?
They're all important, Donna.
We'll go to paper. But if you think, okay, everything's down and it's going to be down for 2 weeks, and then you can start bringing things back up and running, what order do you need them to come up in?
Mm-hmm.
What access do you need in that 2 weeks? Because then you really know. And then another one, plan for temporary, as I just mentioned, or permanent data loss scenarios. Round back to the story about your wife.
Yeah. Thanks for that.
There you go. Just gonna get there. But there's a lot of things that you need to understand. And this is literally these bullet items, like you mentioned, they're great.
Mhm.
Things like this one, I know you love this one, David. As new IT applications are added, ensure they are included in an IT downtime inventory list and include a downtime plan. And then in bold and italics, delete obsolete IT applications from the IT downtime inventory.
Yep. Well, we've gotten to the point where we take advantage of the time change to kind of give us, an indicator to do certain things. So for example,
House cleaning.
Yeah. So I'll tell clients, if you've got it in your policies, you're going to change passwords every 6 months, do it during the time change, because that's kind of everybody knows there's all this stuff you have to do during the autumnal equinox.
And spring.
In spring. So that's another time when you ask IT to give you an inventory of your assets and software and all that, and then go through there and identify, well, we don't need this anymore, we don't use this anymore, and start cleaning that stuff up. So yes, housekeeping.
Yes. And plan for regional outages impacting other facilities that could make it where you can't, oh, well, we'll just have so-and-so do it. Everybody can't do it at the same time with we'll have so-and-so do it. Oh, well, David's going to cover for me. But if David and I both have the same problem, how are we going to cover for each other? And it's a big issue that you have to take into account and look at. It is not as simple as most people want to make it.
Never is.
But all of the things that we go through about making sure that you have a communication plan and knowing how can people talk to each other, and external communication templates, and the way I normally communicate not going to work. How can I do it otherwise? And what kind of legal and insurance concerns are there? It just goes on and on and on, including engaging third parties and what vendors to think about, and contact information for people you need to contact in an emergency.
Yeah, they even go into physical security, of the facility. Just, I mean, it's fantastic list of things to consider.
And ensuring things are in your go bag or boxes.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about your go bag. So here's the thing that I would say that anybody who is, if you're on a team in a large enterprise, take the time and read it, share it with the rest of the team. If you're in a medium enterprise, make this be something that you evaluate your plans against. And even a small one. If you read this and think about it from a perspective of this doesn't apply to me, you're not going to get anything out of it.
Mm-mm.
But I can assure you that David and I read this and see how it applies to us.
Yeah. And
things we need to think of.
I can guarantee you every point of this guide probably came up because of something that's happened in the past to somebody else. And they're like, oh, we probably should have considered that. Mm-hmm. So again, it's just giving you more and more information to make sure that when you do plan, your plan is an effective one because you've covered as many of the bases as you possibly can.
So to bring it back around to the how often, when they talk about exercising, we get to the frequency discussion. Now, and remember, this is looking at all different layers. So it says at the hospital level, routine exercises should occur 1 to 2 times per year with individual units testing their specific workflow at least twice a year. So each of the units, each of the areas, and this is not, it's just an IT problem. And then at the department level, here it goes. It ties perfectly with your point, David. Continuously reinforce cyber hygiene practices during team meetings, educational series, and other appropriate forums.
Can you define continually?
So that is reiterating that it needs to be part of all your discussions.
Let me put it this way. It has to be part of the culture of the organization.
There you go. That is exactly what people have said before.
I wonder why and who.
I know. It's building the culture. They used to call it culture of compliance, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, we started calling it the culture of cybersecurity and privacy.
And security. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but anyway, the whole point of a culture is how do you change the culture of an organization? There's a culture there. Trust me, it's there.
Yeah. No matter what.
It's kind of like the plan thing. It's like, just because you don't have a plan doesn't mean there's not one. Just because you don't have a way to develop the culture you want doesn't mean there's not a culture. There's one there. And it might not be the one you want.
Sometimes it's driven by leadership, but sometimes leadership's not driving it. It's being driven by the people that make the most noise or do the most work towards something. Yep. Let's just say. So we cannot stress enough the value of everything that's in here, the forms and the checklist, and just the fact that it makes you think about what you have. Take the time. Of course, you can Google it, the Healthcare System Cybersecurity Readiness and Response, or you could just go to the website.
Yeah, I was fixing to say, just go check out our show notes. There'll be a link there.
Yeah, on the show notes, we'll give you a link to it. You can learn about other things and stick with us because we're gonna do Cybersecurity Month and talk more about freely available things to build your cybersecurity, privacy and security culture.
That's right. All right, folks, that is our show for today. So remember to follow us and share us out on your favorite social media and give us a rating and review. And don't forget to help us spread the word. Yeah. If you don't, then I'm wondering why you're even at the end of the show. As always, remember that HIPAA is not about compliance. It's about patient care.